I guess I'm probably going to have to work on my camera arrangement. I don't think this is a very uh, good angle. But what I want to try to do is capture the last 30 years of being a draftsman or drafter, whichever you'd like. Um, and it, it's come to me lately that I think artificial intelligence is such an incredible resource because of its ability to network with so many valid databases and come up with an answer from that. And I wonder sometimes how modern architecture, engineering, design, I'm not really an architect or an engineer. I just have always loved to draw and I've always loved to learn. And that's why I figured I'd start my streams out on the first 420 of my birthday as I'm waning out of this career. I wanted to share information I've learned and I wanted to sort of network with the people that some of them I've taught and trained. Some of them were never even dreamed of being in the world of architecture or engineering, and they're now BIM managers. And what was, there was such a good one. When you meet Jaffe, you'll understand. He's always been the cutting edge technology, computational. It was something computational, but the idea is the same. Using this technology, it's become so hard for us because the first thing we do is we make CAD manuals and BIM manuals, and we force people into boxes and take away their ability to make wise decisions. I don't believe in that way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to use these videos to motivate me again to draw because I've sort of lost the passion over the last couple of years. And you're going to find that we're going to go into all kinds of stuff from just flat out drawing a simple house. How would you do that if you've never drawn in Revit before? I'm hoping to have videos to show exactly that. I'm hoping to go over videos how to do complex renderings, make these designs of yours into video games. There's going to be so many different possibilities. I even have hopes to bring some of my daughters in that, if not, just have talks with them on how technology is changing. Because I think if we as real people try to tap into that same kind of idea of branching out and accessing those other good people's information and sharing that and working off of each other's motivations, I think it'll make us all a heck of a lot better. Now, for the most part, I'm not really one who likes to have the webcam on. I'll try to keep it on because I do think it's beneficial, even if you're as ugly as me. Um, but I'm going to try to do more of a sharing my screen, which obviously, this being at 4 o'clock in the morning, my first time of actually doing a webcast, I don't have all of that worked out. I think there's this StreamYard and some other things. So hopefully you'll see over the next couple of weeks some rapid progression in the improvement in the quality and the potential benefit to being able to tune in. And what I really want to do is in the near future, I want to be able to be a place where when you're working in this field of architecture and you're sitting at your computer and you can't figure out how to do something, and of course, there's always the help, which in 30 years I've used, I think, 2 or 3 times because it really is beneficial. You just want to ask a question to someone sometime. And that's what I'd like to be, is not you ask the question to me, but you ask the question to the community that's here. And I've gone through the discussion groups and those kinds of things and tried to answer questions and be benefit to people. I've also gone in in 2008, when the architectural world, if you were in Revit or if you were in architecture in 2008, I don't need to say anymore. It was tough. It was tough. We lost a lot of good people because there just wasn't an economic demand. So they tell me there was no work. Okay, it was very hard to stay fed and work in the architectural industry. So we lost that whole group of people, and it sort of fragmented our whole industry because because we skipped that generation, people who were more experienced had such a gap with the new people that were coming on board. And I really, another part of this webcast is I'm hoping to train young people because I've done a lot of drawings and I've learned a lot about different types of architecture, structure, mechanical, electrical. It's been absolutely wonderful. I want to share that, but I don't know how much more I want to draw. So, what I want to do is I want to try to get that out there. But I do know that if I can get myself motivated to draw, then generally I can usually have a good day and have a lot of fun actually drawing. So, you'll find I apologize in advance, and maybe I'll have to refer people back to this video one day. I have a gutter mouth, and I apologize in advance, and I'm going to try to do what I can to keep that to a minimum. Um, I also tend to not be too respectful of other people's feelings. I just call it as I see it, and I'm going to try not to hurt people's feelings because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. The idea of this is to help everybody improve. But what we've got right now is a very weird situation. We made the transition from drawing by hand and by pen to drawing with the computer because it was so much quicker. And then there came, I forget what microstation intergraph called it back in the mid 90s. It was called Project APDP, but the idea was we weren't going to just draw geometry, we were going to build the objects. And that's obviously progressed. Autodesk, hats off to you. You know, I need to give accolades to Autodesk because they have done a lot of great things. But you're also going to find, I find it despicable how they treat their client base. And maybe that's how I know I'm not going to draw much longer because who knows, maybe I'll be restricted from it. But I'm going to tell you how I feel. And I don't think Autodesk has really pulled its weight lately. But hats off when they acquired the most incredible software at the time. I mean, I was doing renderings and making very good money. It allowed me to spend so much time with my children because I could be so lucrative doing some fancy new renderings of a building and flying around and walking through and boy, it just changed the industry. And then I kept being told that I needed to use Revit. I needed to use Revit. This was before the acquisition by Autodesk of purchasing Revit. And I said, no, I trust my company. My company's Autodesk. And a lot of people don't understand that having that trust really was an important thing in the beginning because in the beginning, when I went to school, I guess I might as well go through. I knew I wanted to be an engineer from probably about sixth grade or seventh grade. I was good in math. I loved to put things together. Not as much as I love to take them apart, blow them up, burn them, do all kinds of other things like a young boy typically would do at that time. Um, and I had my heart set. Oh, I lived in Happy Valley and I had my heart set on going to Penn State and becoming an engineer. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the cards. A few wrong decisions and a process that we all are familiar with, or if you're not familiar with, this weeding out process where we have too many people who want to get it become engineers. So for some reason, we think it's a good idea to try to take some of that chaff out. And I think that's the first mistake of the industry. And I became that chaff in the mid 80s. And there was a school that was saying that if you came and graduated, if you didn't have a job in 90 days, they would partially refund your tuition. And I was like, wow, that's great. And it's in an engineering field. Why don't I do that instead of what I was being suggested at Penn State was we had too many engineers. So why don't you pick another discipline? And I sat there baffled and said, but I've always known what I wanted to do. Why would I pick another discipline? So I decided I would take that risk. And I moved to Pittsburgh. And I was so scared, but quickly found out it was everything I dreamed about. It was an awesome school. And where I got here was saying, I had to decide at that school there was only two different degrees. One was for mechanical engineering, and one was for architectural engineering. Well, at that time, they made that decision because if you were going to go architectural engineering, you would learn Intergraph or MicroStation or the Bentley products they became. If you were going to go mechanical, then you learned the CATIA software. Okay. So, right out of the gate, as a brand new student, the first thing I was taught is you pick your software. And that's where I was going. In the 2000s, I was doing incredible things with architectural desktop in my favorite Autodesk software. I had I had I had learned that software from the first one called Architectural Designer, which then went through several different iterations. But I was doing great things and able to link it up with Viz and do a rendering and do months of work. There was times that some of my clients would start a process of rendering and they would be working on it for 12, 14, 16 weeks and realize that they had a meeting coming up and they were not going to meet the deadline. And there was sometimes that I was able to accomplish that work with architectural desktop and Viz. It was a stripped down version of Max, 3ds Max, and I could do it in a week. And I was like, how can you do 4 months worth of work in a week? This is great. Why in the world would I switch to Revit? Well, finally, when my fifth daughter arrived and I was getting ready to go back into work, I said, you know what? I need to try this Revit thing. As I said earlier, this was before the acquisition of Autodesk purchasing the Revit. And I started playing with it, and it was so different, so infuriating, so frustrating that I was like, oh, I don't even, this is, I can't do this. And then I started wondering if I had become the thing that I always worried about, that person who didn't want to learn. Well, I sat up for 2 days straight, and by the end of the 48 hours, I had come to a conclusion. And even though I was the champion of this process of using architectural desktop and Viz, I was in charge of training 52 people, which, believe me, most of them didn't want to learn. And looking back, I totally understand why. Because the software was so inefficient and so hard to learn. The architectural desktop was. It was so clunky. It was built on an old it was built on an old structure. They just sort of kept sticking things onto it, which is the reoccurring theme. It appears that's what Autodesk did when they purchased Revit. Okay. So Revit started out and was this most lightning fast response, great software. You couldn't use any other file type. So that really was not a good thing to do, to be able to say, yeah, I want to draw a building, but I can't use my mechanical engineer's information. It was sort of a fatal flaw, something that Autodesk had to fix. But Autodesk went about fixing it exactly as they did with architectural desktop. They just kept sort of sticking a patch on here and stick a patch on here and stick a patch on here. And you'll find, I think that's what they've done with Revit. Okay. So I'm going to be showing you lots of stuff in Revit. I'm hoping to teach you stuff. I'm hoping that there are students out there, there are experienced people out there that come to these webcasts and the snippets and the things that the vision that I see for doing this. And I'm really hoping to put a little bit of a, I want to come up with new terms. I want it to be, I want it to be what I envisioned a Revit users group to be. Okay. And I preached many times for a Revit users group. And then I've gone to Revit users group and I felt like it's just more marketing. You're just trying to sell me the next thing. When are you going to help me to learn the thing that I already bought? Which, ironically, you'll hear some rants about me not being too happy that the thing I bought or thought I bought or was confused with the $10,000 that I laid out, however that looks, to actually not owning a software, because you no longer can own software. It's got to be a subscription. We'll save those rants for later. But where I was going in 2008, when the architectural world really took a hit, I was so impassioned by this new software Revit that I learned in 48 hours, went into my boss, who I was supposed to be training all these people in this other software, and I looked at the CEO of the firm, of a 150 person firm, and I said, I'll never draw an architectural desktop again. In 48 hours, I knew that. Well, for the last 17 years, I've enjoyed getting faster and faster. My question is, the whole thing about Revit was supposed to be that less labor could accomplish so much goals. What I want people to ask themselves is, in the way you're using Revit, whether you're doing it on the design side, which I love so much, but come on, guys, go out and get your boots dirty a little bit, learn the real world. Okay. You can't just stay in the book land forever. It will benefit you so much to take a little bit of humility and learn what it actually takes to put the stuff together, because it'll make you such a better designer. Okay, and remember, I'm not a designer. I wanted to be an engineer until I found out how much I actually love to draft. And as I said earlier, the reason I love to draft, if I'm drawing a nuclear plant and I have a football stadium, NFL football stadiums, I moved to Charlotte to draw an NBA stadium. Not just an NBA stadium, but of course, it was the Hornets. We finally got a basketball team stadium. Oh, yeah, not to show my age, but they've already tore that stadium down and built the obviously new. Wait, they're not Hornets anymore. They're Bobcats, the new Bobcat Arena. Ironically, I got to draw on that as well. I got to draw hospitals, houses. I got to draw, I even got to draw medical devices. The thing that I ended up learning is if you draw it and you make all the details for it, you're actually learning how this stuff works. So I've loved every bit of my career. Um, I just I hope to share it with more people. As you're going to be introduced, you're going to end up finding out that yeah, my brother does this. Yeah, my wife does this too. Okay. Now my brother had some interest in it, but my wife had no interest in it whatsoever. So this could be for some people, and I do not want to be one of these late night, I can save your life. All you need to do is send me some of your money, which none of us have any of. But I'm telling you, my wife just wanted to work so bad. And she was such a hard worker. But as with so many dead end jobs, whether they were, and I don't mean to be demeaning, but they were jobs where waitressing and things like that. But she had to drive to a restaurant that was so far away that by the time the little bit of money she made, she ended up spending it, and very little was being contributed to the family. And oh yeah, we used to fight a lot because when you have the passion that I have, I like to draw a lot. I like to draw late at night. I like to draw in the morning. I like to draw. My favorite way to draw is when I get into one of my grooves, and I'm hoping to have some of these live streams where I can just sit here and show you on my screen and talk to you and share with you what I'm doing. But I love to do it when it gets into a point where time just disappears. And I mean that. There's been times where I've watched the sunrise 3 times in a row and gotten through days and said, where did the days even go? And then sit back and look at the work that I've accomplished. And I say, wow, that's what I want to share. My wife, she would get so angry because I would be on the computer. And I'm like, what am I going to do? This is my new wife. And it's just causing so many problems. And I said, I could take some of my overtime money and I could buy her a computer and I could teach her how to do what I do. Oh, when I brought that computer home, it was better than most Christmases. And I have 5 children, 5 wonderful daughters. Her reaction was better than anyone's Christmas morning. You wouldn't believe the excitement in her eyes. And she said, right in her eyes with the excitement, of course, was the fear. And there was lots of it. And she said, I don't know how to do any of that. And I pulled out a 3-ring binder, probably 600 drawings, hand drawings. And I said, you get $10 for every one of these millwork details, they were called, for a very large hospital. And you get $10 for every one you complete. Now, let's sit down and draw the first one, or maybe even two. Well, that's what I'm hoping to do with these series. That's what I'm hoping this side of the stream becomes. I'm hoping that I sort of get a little bit of group buy-in with some of the other people, which I'm calling out markers, because not only did I teach my wife and give my wife this opportunity, which my wife works at an extremely large plant. She's done it. She's so sweet. Oh, I love her so much. She's she's learned she learned architecture. Thought she could never learn. Am I right? She started by learning cabinets. What better place than a hospital? Have you ever been in a hospital? Have you ever seen how many countertops and cabinets they have for where they serve the ice to where the doctors to in your room? They're all over the place. And she just loved it. And then one day I came home and said, "You need to draw a house." And if you would have seen the look in her face, I don't know how to draw a house. Well, in the past 25 years, this is the 25th anniversary of when I started my company, when I turned to my wife and I said, "I know we have a third child on the way. And unfortunately, my company really, they just tell me they can't give me more than a 3% raise. It's just not in the cards. I apologize, like my dirty mouth, my trash talking sometimes. I'm also a smoker. I'm going to try to keep it to a minimum, but you're going to find I smoke way too much." So she's ended up drawing electrical, mechanical, plumbing. She really doesn't like the structural. Sorry, structural guys out there. And you see, that's what you're going to find is the oddest thing is most people sort of treat what I was talking earlier about. Well, that's the software I use. That's the one thing I do. I never could understand way back in 1991 when I was working on that basketball arena, because at that time I was just so thrilled. I couldn't believe how much money I was making. And I was getting a shift differential, and it was a good job, even though I didn't have a bachelor's degree. I only had an associate's degree. But one day at work, I was like, all of the other my friends that did CAD, they microstation, they were so busy. And I was working in the structural department. See how that turned around about the structural with my wife. I was working in the structural department, and I was like, "Well, I'd be glad to help you." And they were like, "Oh no, structural people don't work in the architectural." I was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine." Well, it wasn't too long after that I started helping the mechanical department. Then I started helping the architectural department. And then I started realizing that there's actually a benefit into understanding all those different disciplines. Well, guess what? In 2006, when Revit came out, that benefit was you now had a software that allowed you to be able to do things at such a speed that you could actually handle doing multi-disciplines. And that's when the revelation slowly came to me over the last couple of years that I think most of the industry is in a terrible direction. They're throwing more and more people on the jobs, and it's causing the job to actually slow down and become more discombobulated than what it was supposed to be when we were told how productivity gains. I don't know. I guess they thought you were going to do 10 times as many buildings, which we all know when you start having 10 projects going at the same time, it never fails. Murphy's Law. Every one of those jobs is going to want their job on the same day. Like right before Thanksgiving, maybe before Christmas, or maybe like the one I'm working on right now, right before Memorial Day. So what happens is there's no balance. So as a little company, as I was telling you, I came home and told my wife, I said, I can't get more than a 3% raise, and our third child is on the way. I have a crazy idea. Would you allow me to cash in my 401k and buy a computer and buy the software? And I just couldn't believe that I would, and you'd understand better if you were from that generation because not everyone had a computer. I remember, I think we were spending $100 per meg, not gig, of RAM. And man, I remember I saved up $1,000 for what would have that been? It would have probably been a 16 meg chip for RAM. 16 meg. We're now dealing with gigs, multiple gigs of RAM. But we bought that computer and the software. And then, as I said, then I had so much work that I ended up buying the computer and taught her how to draw. And that's how this has all started. So you'll also find my brother uses the software and is in the industry. And even as I joke sometimes, my bartender, because when I worked second shift and I was 21 years old and single, I met a great, awesome guy. And he was a bartender at a bar that I would go to regularly. And somehow I told him, "Oh, yeah, you could do this too." And he's like, "I don't have any schooling." But he is a tenacious learner. It didn't take long. All I had to do was expose him to the software, and he's devoured it. And he's the one who's became this computational expert that I am so proud of. And I can't wait for the community, which I don't know how much of a community it'll ever be, but I'm going to give it a shot this summer. I figured it'd be something that's worth a try. I'm hoping to do this a couple times a week. All right. And then I'm hoping that maybe hire an intern to dice it up and make it available for tutorials. I'm hoping you come just to hear me rant, or maybe I'm just background noise while you're drawing on your project that you're doing or working on the project that you're doing. I know that I've found that I have several people that I've been watching, and it really does help while I'm drawing. It really is inspirational. But unfortunately, none of them talk about what I do. Now, we're probably going to try to visit some of those sites. And I think that my next webcast is going to be, that's where I'm going to try to use this StreamYard and do so much more of sharing of my screen. And I'm hoping to do that with a couple of those people that I've taught as the years have gone by. I'm hoping that we can share our story, relive that. It's fun to do that kind of stuff. Sometimes you just want to hear blah, blah. And I guess I'm going to be that blah, blah. But I also want to be more than that. I want to make this resource available. And I'm looking forward to it. Don't really know how long I should go for this first one. I guess the people that I watch, they've probably built up stamina. Like I said, I think that I'm hoping to get to a point where I can just draw and you can watch. And you'll end up hearing the same stories over and over. But what I'm really hoping to do is somehow to be able to integrate with the chat because I've seen how productive the chat is on other webcasts that I watch. And sometimes it's maybe that it's not productive as much as I want. I want to be productive. I would love to be able to look at the chat and see a question and say, "Oh yeah, I'll show you how to do that real quick." Because as I said, the help is not so helpful. So I think as far as to give you a little bit of qualifications, after I was able to buy the computer and do all that, and oh my gosh, we had such a wonderful time. Plus the market was good. You're going to find we're going to revisit 2008 again and again because I actually had three beautiful projects going at the same time in this new software Revit, and everything dried up. And we lost that whole generation. So I want to reach out and try to get some of that generation. And I'm going to be writing. I know that I marked this as not for kids, or I don't know that I called it adult or anything. I don't really want to discuss adult type things, but I was worried because of my foul mouth and the occasional gutter talk that I use that I put it on that category. But I do want to write some or not write, but record some of these webcasts. I'm hoping to reach out to some boys at a boys' home that I got to draw years ago. And I'm hoping to sort of teach them from the ground up. So I'm hoping to have some very beginner level stuff. I would also like to have some sessions where I flat out say, go ahead, try to stump me. Try to stump me and the people that I helped get into this industry, because we have, as users, become so strong. I think we can solve most problems. And that's why I think this stream, this I forget what do we call this when you're on YouTube. I hope my videos, I hope my streams become valuable to both new users, experienced users, and the experienced users. I'm really hoping that you contribute to this community. And I think that is the term they use. And I think that is I think it's a very valuable word. And I think that if we, as real people, can tie in that community and capture that and help use that to even out our workflow. Because I'm envisioning that, who knows, maybe we get a little group of people together, and when I've got more stuff that I want to draw, I can give it to someone else. And I even got some ideas on how we can work together. Um, Part of the idea is, if you're experienced and you maybe don't want to draw so much, but you're willing to review other people's drawings and tell them how to improve their drawings, that's what we lost in 2008. Okay? So if you wonder, you're going to sometimes see, where the hell is he going with this? It's in 2008, we lost that interning, mentoring, camaraderie, uh, becoming a leader or a guide and a friend. I don't know. I just don't see it. I think it's broken. And I think as long as it's broken, even something as lame as artificial intelligence can easily take over. But I think if we tap in to authentic, ooh, I like that. If anybody watches this, I went through all those people and I asked them, because you're going to find that this is a quandary I'm on right now, is that this artificial intelligence. And I said I didn't want to jade anyone, so I didn't say artificial intelligence, but I asked each one of them, I said, what is the opposite of artificial? And the first answer I got was real. And I said, I like that. Real intelligence. And then I kept asking. And the next person said that what was the other one? Natural. So the opposites that I've gotten so far for artificial was real and natural. And I played with the idea of natural intelligence or real intelligence. And I'll be honest, I'm thinking right now, I think I'm gonna go with the real intelligence. Or if I see people in the comments, my other choice is saying, instead of us being RI as opposed to I could say that we are the other AI. And maybe we go with not artificial intelligence, but authentic intelligence. Authentic being people that have actually done these jobs, done these things, lived these experiences, because that's the value that we bring. Okay? That computer can't live the experience. It can't understand the pain, and it'll never understand the joy, and it'll never really be authentic. So, who knows? If you made it this far, how long did I make it? Like I said, I was wanting to start my first video on my 55th birthday at the first 420, and it's gone about an hour. Let me know. Should we be real intelligence, RI, natural intelligence, or maybe the other AI, authentic intelligence? I hope you come back to see more. I'm looking forward to getting this StreamYard working. I may put another little short stream up just to see how well I can share my screen. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.